derivatives get a bad name often in the market. Derivatives are blamed for all the ills of the market, weapons of mass destruction, or instruments of mass destruction, as our friend Warren Buffett likes to call them. Although interesting that he's been so heavily invested in insurance companies himself, but that remains to be seen. We can never question the king. The long and the short of it is the root cause of the problem with derivatives is never the derivative themselves. It's over speculation. If one has a look at any bubbles in the market, be they housing bubbles, be they market bubbles, be they fads over new types of shoes where the price goes through the roof, it's people start off small, and then once they start to make money, they get greedy, and suddenly the old rules stop applying, and they take on massive amounts of leverage, borrowed money, and they get overly exposed. So derivatives per se are phenomenal instruments. If you have a look at what derivative markets in essence were designed for, it was to reduce risk in people's portfolios. One goes back to the beginnings of the commodities exchanges. What did you have? Well, you had all these farmers that had certain fixed cost, or the expectation of certain fixed costs over a year, and they had a huge amount of uncertainty, because if the rains came, happy days. If the rains didn't come, they were in trouble, right? So they know that they're going to get a certain amount of output from the farm depending on what happens. So why not hedge some of the risk that they've got by selling some of that stuff forward? And that's where futures started on commodities. It was allowing them to hedge out some of the risk, some of the uncertainty of what the final price they were going to get for their produce. And what did that mean? It meant, well, that they could have much more certainty in the running of their farm. But interestingly enough, what happens is what it starts out as something good, which is used to reduce risk. People get greedy. Why? Because if I'm a farmer and I am involved in grain, I should only be using it to hedge out the risk. But some of the most active investors in grain futures on the long side turn out to be farmers themselves. So they increase their level of exposure. And then when things go wrong, it obviously goes horribly wrong. So I think derivatives are an important part of any investment. I don't think they can be the bulk of any investment. It's strange to hear a derivative player say this, but not more than 20% of your exposure or of your overall portfolio should be in derivative instruments. The bulk of it needs to be in long-term index trackers and the rest. Derivatives, if you're going to use them for speculation, make up a small portion of your portfolio, and it's what I would call the fun portion of your portfolio. It's for that jumping in and out. You're going to have two portfolios, or you're going to have two accounts. When we encourage clients to have two accounts with us, one for your long-term buy and hold, and one for your short-term speculative instruments. We also say to clients, when you've had a good run in your derivatives portfolio, let's say you've made a whole lot of cash, and that 80-20 split is now more like 60-40, well, then you take some of the money out of your derivatives portfolio and you move it into your long-term portfolio. So an important part, an exciting part, but can't be one's entire investment in the market. And derivatives should be used a lot for hedging. At the end of the day, if you're a long-term investor, you don't want to be, for tax reasons, going and selling out your Anglos and Billiton every time you get nervous. But there's no reason why in your derivative portfolio you can't go and buy a put option, because you know that if things fall, the put option will go up in value, and it acts as a hedge. And if things go up, well, you've made on the Anglos and Billiton, and you've lost on the put option. But once again, you maintain that neutrality in your portfolio. So used liberally in a portfolio, derivatives can sow destruction, but used properly, they can add a lot of flavor.